Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday, first show of 2023. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. It's great to see you this morning. I'm wondering if I should put the light on, if it's bright enough in here. We'll figure it out. Robin, good morning. Great to see you. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm feeling really good about the new year today. I feel good. Are you feeling it at all, or are you? I shouldn't be so profuse in my feeling of the new year because I know this is a very hard time of year. For me, worst time between the holidays. So now that that is like done, feeling good, feeling better. Still fighting COVID, and I feel fine. I feel absolutely fine. So again, I get a lot of messages, and I want to say thank you so much for thinking of me. I really am completely okay. And getting better really fast. I really wasn't that sick to begin with. I was one of those lucky people. Kirsten, good morning in Vermont. Great to see you this morning. Andrea, Happy New Year. Good morning. Managed to get out for a walk today after a couple of wet and windy days. That sounds really good. I should really get out there and exercise too, but not at the gym yet, right? Still contagious. That sounds great. That sounds great. Oh, isn't it funny? I mean, I don't know about where you were, but I noticed on New Year's Day, yesterday, it was super sunny. Like it was like 60 in Connecticut where I am. And I just thought my memory of New Year's Eve for me is like not good. New Year's Day is always sunny in my mind. I wonder why. It just seems like we are always, at least in this part of the country, extremely lucky with having unseasonably high temperatures on New Year's Day. Do you have that too, or is that just in my mind? Because it just was like I woke up like super early and drove to Dunkin' Donuts to get a coffee through the drive-thru, and it was like sun just like radiating off the reservoir, and everything was thawed out, and I just thought, this reminds me of other New Year's days. Maybe it's just one of those gifts from the universe, but it can't be universal, right? So, yeah, it's been nice and mild here. The temperature just cannot make up its mind. Mother Nature, come on, go towards spring. Linda, great to see you. Happy Monday. Wishing everyone good health and beaucoup hours of creative time in this year. Absolutely. This is our year. Honestly, this is our year. Let's do it. More on that in a second. Linda H. in Massachusetts. Happy New Year. Great to see you. Karen, great to see you. Happy New Year. Just got back from taking the kids to the airport. Oh, that is sad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Time to plan the next adventure, right? With the kids, the next get together. That is hard. Candace, great to see you. Happy 2023. It was great seeing you last night. Coming back to that in a minute. Sharon, great to see you. Happy New Year in cool and damp Vancouver. Ryan, it's Monday. Great to see you. How's it going? Is it going okay? I hope so. Sharon, I have to say I'm glad the holidays are over. Me too. Me too, Sharon. I don't know, this has been my worst year yet for like depression and all that stuff around the holidays, and I am so glad that it's over. And now it seems like forever before I'm going to be like physically comfortable again, like ready to walk straight into a pond and swim. Seems like it's going to be forever, but it never is it? I mean, that's the thing. It's always so startling how quickly the next season comes upon us. And in this case, going from these short days of winter into spring, it's always like such a pleasure and a relief when that change comes. But we'll just stick together until it does, right? We'll help each other through this weird marshland time of like soggy feet in the ground until we get to a firmer place where everything is quite nice again, right? Kathleen, great to see you. Good to see you. And Judy, glad you. Yep, so lucky, Judy. I feel like I got away with something somehow. Finally got a few and was lucky. Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, it's like I still try to be super careful and thoughtful about COVID and everything, and I can't believe I went so long without having a problem at all or anybody in the family. But yeah, I am very glad that I'm not going to start, but I'm very glad that I was vaccinated and boosted and all that stuff because I really believe that it helped with the quick recovery. Phew. Rita, great to see you. We have 2 birthdays in between. So that is a happy time for you, Rita. I've been loving your posts, by the way. Oh, I always love your posts. April, good to see you. Angela, great to see you. Happy New Year. We started out the new year really, I got to turn the heat off. Hang on. Hot, cold, hot, cold. It was freezing, and I had to put that little space heater on, and now really hot, really. We started off the new year yesterday with a design class. It wasn't design; it was create your own story rug. So the whole thing, and it was such a fun class. I had so much fun. And Candace, I loved your idea with the truck. We have to evolve that idea. The whole class was about creating your story rug and trying to bring out stories that are in you that you remember, or funny things, even made up things, right? But telling a story with rug making. In anticipation of April, the gallery show in Hartford, if you want to send me something, you don't have to ask me if it's good enough. Just tell me you want to send me something, and I want it. And Pierre Sylvain, who's doing the show with me, the rug show there, this is all his idea. He feels the same way. He feels like it's your art. If you've done something you want hanging in that gallery show, we're going to hang it. So it's not a question of curating it or doing a juried thing. Neither of us are like that. We feel like it's your art, it's your story. If you want that hanging in the show, just let me know. And I know some of you have, and I need to get back to you, right? The last 2 weeks have been a lot. But it was a wonderful class, and we went through lots of ideas and trying to make that journey, that mental journey between locking into an idea, thinking about how you're setting it up in terms of composition, and all the big part is all of that weird problem solving, problems that will happen while you're going from point A to point B, idea to paper, and trying to sort of dam up all of those problems before they trip you up and you give up on the project, right? Because that's like just human nature. Oh, screw it. This has been like way too much. I'm all set, right? All done. That's where we don't want to get to. So this class was about trying to solve problems and come up with lots of solutions and lots of possibilities. And Kansas came up with this great idea about a truck that's no longer in the family, like a beautiful vintage truck, and the stories and emotions that were attached to that, and how to get that image into a composition in a way that is nostalgic, has charm, is beautiful, honors the subject, will make a great gift. So we were talking through things like that last night. It was just a great way to start the new year. It was so much fun for me too. And my mom came up with a great idea too about doing a sister's rug. I think my mom's in her art group right now. But I'm really excited about doing some story rugs too. And I just realized this morning, before I forget, Patreon, a huge thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon. I really appreciate it. You supporting this brand makes this show possible, because obviously 3 times a week and me being on air for a good 4 hours a week is a lot, and it's a lot out of my day with prep, and I really appreciate you. And Patreon members, you will get a Patreon blast today with a new pattern for the month. So that's coming today. I'm a little bit behind because I was working on the class and then I was working on this show. So that's coming up. And also the Designing Like the Book of Kells, the Celtic themed class, is coming up this month. I have a lot of in-person appointments coming up this month, speaking dates. The 28th in Hartford, right, where it'll be followed by a little Van Gogh class. And the Van Gogh exhibit is going up later this month, so that's coming. 3 days before, so that must be the 25th, I'm at the New Canaan Historical Society giving a talk about the history of rug hooking, and then doing a class for people who are signing up for it, the beautiful flower vase rug, the one rug that they have at the Historical Society. It's extraordinary, and it's an original composition. So I'm doing a smaller, sort of abbreviated version of that rug to honor that house and that rug and the family that lived there. So that will be a lot of fun. Will you be sending a reply today? I'm not able to attend. Yes, yeah, I'm sending the whole thing out in a few minutes. I had it loading last night, the class from yesterday, so I'll be sending that out. And if there's like, if there are a few people who weren't able to make the class, and I'll have to sort of gauge it by figuring out what the numbers were last night, that would want me to rerun the class, I could also do that. So that's not off the table at all. That's like an absolute thought. So we'll talk about all that, but definitely Robin, absolutely. I'll do that right after this. So those things are coming up. There's a bunch of other things coming up this month. And I had done this design, which I'm going to be working on next. So in anticipation of the Celtic theme and everything, this is what I used for the thumbnail today. I really love this sampler, and it is this size, right? So it's like 18 by something. I'm going to work on this. Oh, shoot. I left the box in the other room. I'm going to be working on this in a color plan that is inspired by the box in the other room, because while I was walking by the laundry basket today, I just did like this photo, the screenshot in my head. Just thought of a dirty joke from Facebook. I won't do it. It's too dirty. I was walking by the laundry basket and I saw this beautiful polka dot lilac pair of pants of Jocelyn's and a scarf and something else of mine. It was like instant color plan. So that's in the other room, and I picked up a bunch of dyes. So I'm going to be working on this, and I am going to make a smaller Celtic pattern after I send out the video today for people who want to start the beginner patterns in January. So it's going to be a kit, and it's going to be smaller because I think this is too much. I am going to do a series of how-to videos with this one, and then you will see a smaller kit listed later today that has a Celtic theme that is super pretty for January, that comes kitted, that is a walkthrough thing as well. So all of that is coming. Who is she? Happy New Year. Oh, well, I called her Maeve, but this is actually, oh, let me give you a good answer for that. This is like a sampler, right? That I was just kind of fooling around with the idea of like wings and paisleys. I ended up settling on paisleys in the dome because it is rectangular, the piece. This is all inside the frame. And I wanted to do kind of like what looked like stone leaves on it, just two colored, not crazy shading. So I named her Maeve and I gave her a heart. She already has her book, like for the Illuminations, and I did stuff that I liked, like the Celtic sort of hearts, right? Also very Pen Dutch. And then I did the chain, which we sometimes see in Celtic art, but I liked the chain for symbolism. It's not an eternity chain. I prefer the eternity chain, but I always love like because my dad was a Mason, I always love like the fraternal men's organizations. It's always in my head, all the symbolism that go with those. I'm pulling something up to show you. And so that's kind of like the Oddfellows links, right? But I thought it was also beautiful, like people interlinked, right? So just symbolism. But the answer to who she is, let me change my glasses. I'm glad that you asked, because I was doing some research in anticipation of the Celtic class, and no, not Queen Maeve. Hold on just a second. I just named her that because I love the name. But I'm going to tell you where I got it from. Let me see. I hope I didn't already close that window. That would be horrific. I might have. Let me see. I might have to tell you tomorrow. I went down this rabbit hole, and in going down this rabbit hole, I found this woman who had, I'll have to tell you tomorrow what her name was. I'm trying to brainstorm while I'm doing this. This Irish woman in the Middle Victorian period, like 1850s, 1860s, I'll give you more on this maybe in the Celtic class. She started documenting as an academic, as a Victorian woman and an academic, Irish woman, she started documenting Celtic art. And in doing so, she began to draw designs that she found, like in Ireland, if you've been there, they have all of these areas off roads with an arrow that says something like antiquities. And you think like, oh, good, it's an antique store, but it's actually like a ring of stones or something like that, or some ancient thing, often Celtic, like a cross or something, or just a single stone that's sitting in a field. And you realize that when you drive down there and there's no antique store, right? That's how much of a pig I am that I don't even realize that. But I did start following these driving in Ireland, and it's a lot of fun to find them. And she kind of went from place to place, documenting all of these beautiful crosses with the knotwork and stuff in the center of villages and at crossroads, all had special meaning, different places. She started documenting them all by drawing them. And her illustrations began to be used by contemporary, for her, Victorian poets who wanted to use some of her beautiful examples of illuminations in Celtic art, replicas that she had shored up from art that otherwise would now be another 150, 200 years along, damaged and lost, and start using them as like book plates and book covers and things like that. So the picture of the woman, and I'll give you more on that when I have that handy again, is based on actually a man that she drew, and he's holding a book, and the other arm looked very literally broken, like there was something wrong. So I changed the position of it and I turned it into a woman, but it's really clearly based on something that she drew that she was copying from whatever she was looking at the time. So I'll give you more information on her because she was an amazing historian and artist. And we talked about this a little in class yesterday, she wasn't a great original artist, but she was great at copying stuff. And she loved history. So those two things together gave her a purpose in her life where she just traveled all the time because she had the means to do it. and started to really classify and categorize this era of Irish history and art that up until that point was not very organized or tidy to approach. So interesting, innovator, absolutely. And when you have when you know what your talents are, what your strengths are, what you enjoy doing, and you find a project like that and you make that your life's work, we eternally are grateful to a person like this. I will find her name and I'll give it to you. It was a great story. Let me see if I can find it, Kathleen. I'm not gonna go through my phone because I accidentally closed that window. Classic. Paula, I don't know about your class. I would love to see it if you can. Yeah, Paula, it was a great class. So I'll give more info on that, and I'm debating whether I should just rerun it a date next month so that new people can come in. And the people who haven't seen it could join in at that point too. That might be something good to do because we went 20 minutes over, which for me is good because I never know the shape it's going to take and how many side conversations we're having. We didn't have a ton last night, so we only went a little bit over, and I was feeling it out because it was the first time I ran that specific class. So maybe it is something I should just put on the calendar for next month again for those of you who couldn't make it, Robin, but also you could watch it in the meantime. People who want to interact and work on ideas that you have with me live, because in class I always just take out paper, draw something that I mean, hold it up. So even if it's not perfect, maybe it helps you get from point A to point B and you go, oh, okay, I'm having a problem with the trucks. I'm not seeing how to put them together in a composition. And even if I do a horrible drawing, at least I can show you some examples of what I'm thinking and it can be helpful, right? Let's just do that. Let's just do that. Let me catch up here and then we're going to get into commentary. Yeah, she was a real person. She was definitely a real person. I'm gonna say I'll take a minute at the end of the. Hold on, let's take a minute. Can you talk amongst yourselves for just 1 minute because it's going to drive me crazy. I'm going to catch up with the thread. I just want to give you her name. Let me see. I'm going to Google. I'm going to walk through this with you. Celtic woman manuscript, Ireland. I'm just putting in a search. Ireland. Illumination. Yeah, illumination. Let me see what this pulls up. Because it was an academic, I want to say it was the university of, it was one of the universities in Dublin. And I read the article and then I clicked on other links and I went to different articles. And I mean, it was all like, it was so good. It was so good. Let me see. Let me add the word historian. And then I can give you her name and you could go down the rabbit hole too. It's not like unlimited resources online that show her work, but it was a few things of hers that were shown and also more links. Yeah, no, I'll put a post later in our FaceTime in our Facebook group, and I'll also add a note to the Patreon post that I'll be putting out today. So hopefully it reaches you one way or the other, and I'll also mention her name tomorrow on coffee time. See, I cleaned up my phone last night, and as soon as I clean up my phone, what are the chances I need something on it? It's 100%. You know that, right? As soon as you clean anything up, it's 100%. So I'll supply that later because it really was a good article. It was interesting, and it gave a great idea of something useful to do with spare time. I'd love to know. Yep, definitely online, extremely helpful. Okay, excellent. So great. We have a lot of stuff to look forward to, and I can't wait to show you the color plan for this too. So I'll add that to the Patreon post as well, coming out later today. Now, I was because I did the class last night, I was thinking, what can I do with today's episode of Coffee Time? And you know what I did? I ended up going to bed early, well, 11:30, and I brought this periodical with me that is, I have mixed feelings about. So let's talk about it together. It's a 1951 periodical that I found on eBay, and it clipped into a binder that was kind of like, well, first of all, it's from Cornell, right? Cornell University, and it's part of a series called Cornell Miscellaneous Bulletin #2. So in the 1950s, right, this is right around the time Paint by Number comes out in 1950, right, in that year. This is right around the time post Second World War, but that particularly women, I'm not being sexist, but particularly women are being sort of, I don't want to say targeted, but suddenly there appears a lot of documentation classes for at-home study, learning all different kinds of new handcrafts that would complement and be useful around the house, right? So we get this a little bit earlier in farm communities where you get like college classes a little bit earlier, like in the late 1940s, offering all kinds of what we would later consider like home economy type classes, making the most of your hands, of your free time, of your scraps, being thrifty with things around the home. So Cornell and a lot of other universities jump on the bandwagon with this, more like the 1950s. Cornell is a little bit earlier. This is just the segment on hooked rugs, very small periodical that would clip into a larger binder that would include a lot of other subjects, right? Other things that you could learn to sort of maximize your usefulness around the house. I guess the later equivalent, I think, comes out in the 70s. Do you know the Foxfire books? That's maybe more male oriented. Again, not being sexist. I'm just thinking of content, skinning animals and things with like the Foxfires, but lots of useful information. Things like this were geared more for the homemaker. So, Nancy, good to see you. Oh, good to see you. Thank you. Cat's Gallery, great to see you in Savannah. Oh, I love Savannah. Talk about antiques. So I was looking at this, and it's called Modern Hooked Rugs, and April 1951, and it's written by Charlotte Brennan Robinson. And it really is a great periodical. Let's look at this together. And I'll tell you why. I mean, I don't have mixed feelings in terms of I think it's garbage or I think it's, oh, this is the thing that I was just showing you. And I colored it like this, but I already kind of changed my minds on the colors. It's going to be similar to this the way I hook it, but this is already available as a pattern at Ribbon Candy Hooking. So that is, the link to that should be in the description of this video if you love it. And I'll be working on it with you. I don't have mixed feelings about this periodical in terms of like, that's garbage, this is wrong information. It's just that things have changed so much, and going through this periodical got me thinking about attitudes at that time. And that's what I want to talk about in this issue, in this episode. So come back with me here, and this is what it looks like on the cover. This is not something that you need, I think, to search for. It is not so, I'm basically showing you every page of it live, and it's not super informative. What kind of frame is that? Okay, so that's a great question. This is a floor frame, and it's more like a quilting or embroidery frame. So I'll show you later in this episode, there is a picture of the whole frame standing, but if you are somewhere where you use like Facebook Marketplace or even eBay, because these collapse, I wouldn't get one new because the new ones are super expensive, but these are embroidery or quilters frames, and it's like a rectangle with two rolling bars on the top and bottom. And you see in the photo, and you'll see it better in the next picture, they're using, I think, pantyhose here, cut up strips of pantyhose to sort of wheedle through the edge, right, the east and west of your piece, and then you tie them. And you might have to increase the tightness of the tying as you work and as it stretches out a little bit as you go to make sure it remains taut. But this is a basic quilting or embroidery floor frame, and you often see them on Facebook Marketplace and used. And the right price for something like this, not to be awful because it is useful, but the older ones that still work great, the right price is, I would say, $20 to $35 for something like this, because not a lot of people do embroidery or any of these kinds of crafts anymore, and there is a surplus of them. So you should be able to find them if you like this idea. Attaching your piece to it is a thing. I'm going to come to that in just toward the end when we're on that part. So this starts out with the idea, I have one that is a bliss frame, just like that one. Oh, okay, so Nancy's saying she has a bliss frame that's quite similar to that. I would just search for, not everybody who encounters those kinds of frames know that they can be used for rug hooking, and they will call them quilt or embroidery or needlework frames. Erica Wilson shows a lot of those in her 1970s show, like, her PBS show or whatever it was. So I think people are used to not calling them rug frames, but if you look, you should be able to find them because they are plentiful at this point. The first page of this, I love how she starts. She starts with a quilt by William Morris. And she says, William Morris says, nothing made by man's hands can be indifferent. It must be either beautiful and elevating or ugly and degrading. Now, that is one of his most famous quotes, and I do love William Morris, but it is a bit harsh, isn't it? That's a bit polarizing. That's not true at all. We often make stuff with our hands that we wish was more beautiful and didn't quite hit that note, right, for ourselves. Maybe the person standing next to us thinks it is quite beautiful. That I think that phrase puts a lot of pressure on the person who opens this for the first time. She talks in the first pages about how this bulletin is for beginners. And she makes a point of saying, you need to know nothing to be able to approach this. I like this conversation, right? The way that she starts it, I like it. She says, before you start rug hooking something the size of a rug, make some smaller mats for like under lamps, flower pots, hot plates, small table covers, footstools, things like that, chair seat covers. I don't even know if I agree with that. I often say, listen, if you haven't done any rug hooking yet, and you're okay with pulling up 4 times as many loops and knowing that your first project might not be your favorite one, do a big one, do a small one, do whatever strikes you right? I'm not a big fan of like saying you have to do a small one first so that you can work out the kinks. You're never going to work out the kinks. There's always going to be mistakes that you make in every project that you do. So the idea of working out the kinks and having that be like the end of an era is just not realistic. You're not going to work out the kinks. So you might as well work on whatever piece you love first. But she starts by saying to hook small pieces, you want to choose first a geometric pattern. Now, this is very specific, right? This is one teacher's opinion. I don't think this is a bad idea either. And she starts by saying, make, middle way through the thing, geometric patterns, right? She says, make a paper pattern. Cut from light cream or white paper the shape and size of your piece. So she's saying, cut it true to size. Make a pattern square or oblong, right? So draw straight lines on your paper with a black lead pencil. And then she goes into talking about adding lines and creating geometrics, and she's giving us ideas at the beginning for how to do this. I quite like this, actually. I think I might do a video on this later this afternoon. Just starting a geometric pattern and working it into burlap the way that she's suggesting. And step 2, she's saying, and these are more examples of geometrics, right? And why is she choosing geometrics first? Well, because you don't need any special art, talent, or knowledge to just draw some straight lines. And you can also make it balanced, right? You can have perfect symmetry if you're working on a geometric pattern. So this is what she's putting forward because she's trying to set the maker up for success, and that in her heart's definitely in the right place with all of this advice, and it's all solid advice. Choose a color scheme. Take 3 main colors from the color scheme in the room where you want the piece to go. Have one of these colors dominate by using it in the larger spaces, right? So I'm paraphrasing all this, but she's coming up with some good, simple ideas for an absolute beginner. She says, color the design with wax crayons, meaning like crayons, in the 3 colors that you've selected. And I think she's saying 3 because she doesn't want to overwhelm you, right? And draw each line in the color. So she's saying mark out the picture that you drew with the crayon, so you basically have a color plan that you can refer back to. And then the next section, she's saying prepare the burlap in the frame, and so she will be using burlap. This sentence is funny to me. Select the burlap. New burlap is best for the small pieces because the yarns are more even than in burlap bags, which usually are sleazy. I mean, is that funny? I mean, I don't know. Maybe the word sleazy has changed or shifted definition, but I mean, I know a lot of sleazy people, and I'm probably one of them, but I never think of bags as being sleazy. I haven't encountered that usage yet. So yeah, bags work great. Feed sack bags work great, and if you can get burlap from the store, that works even better. So she talks about cutting the burlap and drawing the straight lines onto the burlap, and she's talking about the idea of following the grain, right? Because you always want to square your project before you start hooking it. Squaring it is everything. If you have a piece of backing fabric, whether it's burlap or something else that's a little bit torqued, like diagonally twisted, you don't want to just draw your thing on and go, well, my rectangle is straight, so we're good. It's not good at all. It has to be along with the grain. And as you fill in the piece, and it is flat out squared on that grain, you will see that it becomes squared, absolutely becomes squared. And you're like, oh, the piece is twisted. So how could this be squared? It has to be squared and it becomes squared. You have to trust in that. Dated of textiles and clothing, flimsy, sleazy. Okay, so that's a good definition. That's funny. I wonder if sleazy as a word for like loose women is a result of clothing and garments being sleazy, right? If the whole look is sleazy, that's interesting. Um, and Kathleen says the word definition was meant to steer the reader away from using burlap. Yeah, well, she is going to use burlap, but she's not going to use sleaze. She's not going to use feed sack burlap. And, I guess it's just options, isn't it? It's like upscaling a little bit if you can. The idea of leveling up to something that has a little bit more integrity. But she talks about cutting the burlap and the sizing of the burlap in terms of holes per inch. She's real specific. And I guess at this time, people were much more detail oriented, right? Much more generally capable. And then she talks about drawing the design onto the burlap. And this part is tricky. She says, first thumbtack the burlap securely to a board or to the table. Be careful to keep the yarn straight and at right angles to each other. Use a ruler to measure your design and draw your design directly onto the burlap with a black lead pencil. It is important to keep the straight lines of the design straight. And then ink in the design with India ink and a drawing pen or a heavier writing pen. Now, isn't that very 1951? I'm going to turn the heat up because now I'm freezing. I just find that so interesting. And I don't mean to sound like patronizing, but I find that so interesting because she's not even saying draw a grid over it and transfer it that way so that you have some sort of peace of mind in knowing that it is exactly the drawing that you drew and were happy with to begin with. She's not saying that. She's saying redraw it and in the same pencil right onto the burlap and then put ink on top of it. So, I mean, this can be done. Like, this can be done. This is a lot of trouble, right? We have easier transfer methods now. Sharon says it would be kind of cool to hook a feed set. Absolutely, absolutely. And Sharon, sometimes we've talked about that, and I want to come back to that because I have a few feed sacks from like the 1920s, 1930s, and I have hooked into some of them. And this is a conversation that I start a lot, and I haven't had time to get back to, but 2023, I feel like there's time for everything this year. It is cool to hook into a feed sack. And in fact, on some of the early coffee times, I talked about finding a feed sack, just wondering if I have any in here and I don't, that already has an image on it and hooking the image. If it's a good image, like a barn or a windmill or something like that, just hooking part of the feed sack and maybe stretching it over like a picture frame. So it's like, yeah, nice piece of wall art. Just be really cool. We'll talk about that some more too because that's one of my favorite subjects, actually using feed sacks. And if your feed sack has a hole in it, I'll do a video on this, but you can patch it in the back, right, with more burlap or the other half of the burlap that you're not using that's the same feed sack, because then you know you have the same gauge, patching it in the back and then sewing through it where the hole was, because then you save the graphic on the feed sack if there's a big hole. And many feed sacks have beautiful graphics, but there's a big hole. And if you search feed sacks on eBay, you'll find that there are tons. And some of them are very expensive because they're super rare. And sometimes you find the same feed sack with a hole, and it's not as expensive, like at all. And that's maybe the one to get. If you're okay with doing a little hand sewing, you know you can save the feed sack if you're going to hook through it anyway. And that is a fun thing. That is a good idea. Let's do that together. So, okay, so you draw onto the feed sack, and then she talks about selecting a frame, and she talks about a picture frame. And I think this is really a cool part, where she says, and I'm looking down at the bottom here in case you're trying to follow along. She's right next to that star on the bottom left. She's saying pick a sturdy picture frame or a window screen frame or make a homemade frame, that whatever size you want, using 4 softwood sticks, such as pine, 2 inches wide and 1/2 inch thick. And she's just talking about whacking them together, right, to create a frame. And then she's saying stretch your burlap tight. Now I'm over here. I want you to stay with me in this periodical, and we are going to go down some rabbit holes. But 1950, welcome to 1951. Oops, wait a minute. Nope, very bad, getting worse. Oh my God, okay, sorry, nope, wrong one. Wow. Okay, I missed a slide. So this is what's on the next page. A collection of hooks that should still look quite familiar today. She's saying, stretch the burlap very tight onto the frame to make hooking easy. If the burlap fits the frame, pin it in place, right onto the frame. This is something we talk about a lot on Coffee Time because this still works. You just get a frame from Michael's, a picture, like a canvas. Just rip the canvas off, save it in case you want to fool with it later for something else. Maybe do some assemblage or something. But keep the frame and just stretch over there and put thumbtacks, or I prefer upholstery tacks, a little bit more business, right? Business end of the tack is a lot longer in most cases. Upholstery tacks are different too, and permanent, like it'll hold really well. And I will repeat that the backing fabric that I think works the worst with this is monk's cloth, because it's 100% cotton, right? And it wants to stretch a lot. It's such a tight weave. It still works, but you're going to have to kind of repair it a little bit with your fingers. It won't gouge holes if you're stretching monk's cloth onto a picture frame this way. Will work, but don't keep it stretched for too long, or it might like really damage the backing fabric. So she's talking about stretching it right onto the frame, and then she talks about materials to look for when you start hooking, and she says wool material makes the most satisfactory hook drugs. So look for wool. And she's saying look for it in old, at rummage sales, look for old skirts, old pants and slacks and things like that. And she's saying rip them apart and use them. So she's talking 100% about recycling material. I love that part too. But she is saying do 100% wool. Up for grabs. I don't feel like that at all. But you know, we do know that wool is very hard wearing on the floor if that's what the intention is. And she's saying use sharp shears to cut the material into strips. All the strips should be the same width and the same thickness. That's a tall order if you're using recycled material. Some of it's going to be thicker, some of it's going to be thinner, some of it's going to atomize in your hands while you're trying to work it. It is a moving feast, right? A movable feast, right? That's Hemingway, isn't it? It is going to be tricky. And you can work this way, and it's great to work this way in the old-time style, but it's not going to be super easy for beginners. If you are okay with knowing that some things hook better than others, when you cut some things up too thin, they atomize in your hands, and you must cut them wider if you want to use them, and you should. And you're going to have a variety of different cuts, and none of the cuts you do with your scissors are going to be exact, and who cares? You have to be at peace with all of that, right? Or take out a rotary cutter and make them really the same size if you feel like it's going to really get to you that they're not even. That's an up to you part. So she talks about more sleazy burlap talk, and then she talks about cutting stuff into strips, and then she talks about choosing your hook, which is kind of funny because everything is very sort of grassroots until this point, and then she's like, and now you select from one of these hooks, but you don't even have these hooks. So we hit kind of a bad hurdle right at the beginning. So she does go into the conversation about use a hook that you have or buy a new one. Some 5 and 10 cent stores, dry goods stores, and a few places selling materials for hook drugs carry them. You can make one at home from a 10-penny nail. 1951. File the end to resemble a crochet hook, but do not make the point sharp. A sharp point may make your fingers sore, and that is true because you will touch the tip of it every time you pull up a loop, and it may split the yarns of the burlap. Yarns is the wrong word, but she's saying you could actually rip a hole through the burlap because your tip is too sharp. Not good. You could also rip holes through the wood if your tip is, wool if your tip is too sharp. Also not good. So you don't want a really sharp tip. And a lot of old hooks do have a very sharp tip. And I like occasionally working with a really old, like a 19th century hook, and my finger does hurt constantly because it just keeps hitting it in the same place. And after a while I go, why does my finger hurt? Oh, and then I switch to something else, right? So she says if you are going this route, and this is something kind of fun, this is something I might do a video on just for S's and G's, cut off the head of the nail and set that end into a small wood handle. Experiment with different kinds of handles until you find one that best fits your hands. Many persons like a round handle, others prefer a slim handle. Some prefer a straight hook, others like a bent hook. Some like a thick hook, some like a slim hook. Some like this kind of shank. So this is getting to sound very questionable, but you know what It's a lot of specific shank and shaft and hook talk. And you're probably not going to make one to begin with. And I can't advise or advocate for making one unless you would love to do this kind of project for the academic satisfaction of knowing that you've done it. But it is probably an exercise in frustration, but interesting. And then she says, hook the design. And here she gets into the part that is, let me come back to you with the next slide. Here she gets into the part where she talks about, where were we? Yeah, I think we were here. Hook the design. Sit at the table with your chair about 2 feet away from the table, and then you're resting that picture frame thing that you just morphed into a frame, right, to work on. Put that about 2 feet away. This is all subjective. And then she talks about clamping the 2 upper corners of the frame to the edge of the table. I'm not going to go too far into this because I don't want to give you too many visuals for things that I feel would be further grief and aggravation triggers, right? But this is, the periodical is dated, right? And I feel that we do have better ways that we talk about all the time. So she talks about just doing it at this point. And I want to just come back to you for a second because I see there are some, Karen says, my coffee bags have cool designs on them too. Coffee bags do have cool designs, including like contemporary ones, right? They don't have to be like from the 1920s. Contemporary coffee bags have super cool designs because it's hip again to use coffee bags and stuff to reupholster like your accent chair, right? Or something like that. You see in coffee places, shishi places, like they've stretched coffee bags like on the walls as art. That's a thing now too. So you can find these things, and they do have cool designs that you could hook right into. It would be a great project. And Sharon says, yes, I found out how stretchy monk's cloth is. I went to Rug Warp. Yeah, it really depends on where you get it too. Like I always use the monk's cloth from Door because Amy Oxford, it's like the one that she uses too, and I also use it for punching projects. So I go to that. But I have to agree with you. I prefer rug. If I'm going to use a tight backing fabric, I prefer Rug Warp too, and it's tighter than monk's cloth in most cases. I think in all cases. Sometimes there is that silky, glossy, stretchy monk's cloth, and I don't like that one. I'm not going to say where that one comes from because I feel that's crappy, but I don't like that one at all. I feel it doesn't have stretch, but it does. It gives once and then it doesn't come back, and that drives me crazy. I'm always monk's cloth is the trickiest of the backing fabrics for me. I'm driving over to Michelle Micarelli's place this afternoon too to pick up a couple of bolts of linen from her because her linen is my favorite, and the Door Mill monk's cloth is my favorite. That's what I stock in Ribbon Candy Hooking too. I don't stock anything else because I'm just not sure. But Rug Warp is underrated. I should probably start stocking Rug Warp again because I use it so much, and I prefer Rug Warp for punch, whether it's worsted weight, fine needle, or regular needle. I prefer Rug Warp, definitely. And Andrea says, I love to try Rug Warp, but I can't get it. I'll start stocking it again, Andrea, in case you want it, or I could just send you a small piece of it so that it's not like a huge thing. I'm happy to do that too. And Kathleen says Rug Warp is underrated. Okay. Hold on. Sounds like someone else was telling her to hook as she was documenting how to. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is exactly what it sounds like. Oh, Mom, you are there. I thought you were out with your buddies today. Hey, good to see you. I am here. I might even run over today a little bit. We'll see. Or we could always bleed over into Wednesday. Yeah. See, I love these side conversations. It's worth having because we're gathering information about what works and what doesn't. And just because like monk's cloth hasn't worked for someone last time, it doesn't mean the next monk's cloth project won't. And that's why it's good to have these conversations. But then again, if you find something that you prefer more, like Rug Warp, then you just stick with that because if it ain't broke, right, we don't even want to think about fixing it. So it's funny how now in the brochure she's like, now you hook it, right? And she does show you how to pull up loops. This is the extent of it. So it's pull up loops and try to keep them even. And I even take exception to that, no pun intended, because I'm not a big fan of perfection. And then she talks about finishing the piece, and that is literally this much information. So, she talks about wrapping the sides under, just that one finish, just get the ends under, because she's talking about smaller projects here. This is the part that is really interesting for me. We've done a geometric. With this brochure, we've done a geometric, and now it's time to do a floral. she only gives you two options in this brochure. You do a geometric, get that out of your system, and now it's time to start the florals. And this is really 1951, isn't it? So she says, flower design. For a second small piece, cut out your paper pattern again and start drawing a flower. And this is its whole this is a whole different conversation that I want to talk about with you, because I think this is so interesting. She talks about same thing, Groundhog Day, preparing the burlap in exactly the same way, and she shows you these images of flowers. So she's giving you ideas for different kinds of flowers, florals, fauna type stuff that you can do, and she's saying, pick something, draw it the same way that she's already described. Cut your strips, plan your colors, and again, hook the design in the same order. And then hook the background. Because, of course, there's no background with geometrics. It's all part of the design. So this is what she's showing us here. And I have to say, as soon as we got into this conversation about flowers in this periodical, let me see what I went to next. So she starts showing you, I'm going to come back to slide number 6. She starts showing you ideas for flowers, and it made me think. I fast forwarded to the end of the thing, and from here on out it's flowers, and it stopped me short, because now we do so many different subjects, right? Particularly with the story thing fresh in my mind from yesterday, the story class. We do so many different subjects, but it was just one of these things that my brain stopped short, and I went, wow, 1951, your choices are geometrics or florals, right? That's what you get. And I started thinking, why is it always florals? And it's not that I don't like florals, particularly in the winter, I love florals, but I started thinking why, and it brought me back to a conversation that we had in the past, and I thought, let's just recap this, right? Let's just see this through for a minute and stay with me. Nothing against florals. I use them all the time. Wait until you see the next month's worth of designs after I get over the Celtic set, because it's going to be a lot of florals, right? I'm going to be thinking about spring way before spring. But 1951, I'm thinking, at this point, it is interesting to me that everything is florals, really. And I'm thinking about permagown, I'm thinking about that era of teaching rug making, and I'm thinking of the patterns that were available. For the most part, it is predominantly florals. And I'm thinking, why is that the case? Because when we hit that mid-century point, right, we are already moving toward the MCM modern movement. We are seeing designing that is very different in 1951 than florals. And the florals are really sort of a knee-jerk reaction to what came before, right? And because everything is so cyclic. And I'm thinking, when did florals really get to be so important to decoration and design? And it brought me back to you know where and you know who, and you know who. Think in your mind while I'm looking for this slide, but I know you know who. Victoria, right? Hold on just a second. I'm not going to blow on camera because I know I'll get emails about it, but I am having a bit of a COVID moment. Queen Victoria, everything floral, florid, during this period, and there she is with the love of her life, Albert. Don't you love the story of Victoria and Albert? I mean, it's just, any love story is great, but for me, this is an especially great one because they were so in love. So during the Victorian period, flowers are a big deal. And it's interesting because during the Victorian period, and I know I've said this maybe 2 years ago on Coffee Time, but it's a thought worth repeating. British Victorian people were not especially religious in the way that they lived, right? Church going was at a low, and interestingly, Victoria was a Lutheran, right? But she was very Protestant tolerant, and even more than that, she was tolerant toward all religions, right? She really was, and with the Brits colonizing the world, Andrea, sorry, nothing personal, at the speed that they were, you had to be, right? Because you were bringing a lot of people in from different cultures to this tiny island. And she was very tolerant, and that's one of the things I love about her. She was very Lutheran, right? So she was very religious, but people in general were not during the Victorian period. One of her great sort of themes was trying to get people back into the idea, we're getting away from this idea now in modern times, not quickly enough in my mind, but separating, church from religion. And she was big on keeping them together, right? Getting people going into some worship situation no matter what it was. It was like, you pick, but do it. So she was herself very religious, but it was not a religious time. And weirdly, during the Victorian time, somehow it was that period in history where women as homemakers, right? Because being a homemaker in this period is a very big deal, getting it right. And Victorian women of even of the highest classes were doing handcrafts, right? Because they were trying to do things at home that beautified their home. Beautifying your home, just like again in the 1950s, it post-war, post-two wars, is a big deal. And the idea during the Victorian period of beautifying your home with plants and stained glass were two of the main ways that you would do it. And in my mind, that has always had, this is just a theory, right? This is not academically researched, but I feel like the more plants and stained glass you put into your house, like your house, the more your house feels like a church. And I always thought that that was a weird association because it was not particularly a church-going time. And was it a replacement for, were women trying to create, this is my personal theory, the Garden of Eden in their home for their husbands, and to supply that part of life, because in general, in the Victorian period as well, I think women were more devoutly religious than men were, right, in terms of like being devout and truly believing and feeling it. I think it was a theory, but a way of bringing religion into the house. So decorating everything with flowers, with plants, with stained glass, you're creating kind of a religious experience in the home. And this is where we start to see a lot of plants inside the home. And for example, I didn't do a big rabbit hole thing this morning because I just taught last night and I only had this morning. But I was looking at, sorry, I'm doing more stupid stuff. Nope, wait a minute, let me come back up here. That's later in our book, and I'll probably latch this onto tomorrow, or sorry, Wednesday. So let me come back here. Nope, still stupid, hang on. Wait a minute, sorry. Gosh, what is wrong with me? I have these out of order. That's what's wrong with me. Hang on, stick with me. We'll get there in the end, I promise. Or will we? No, we will, I promise. Hang on. Yep, there it is. So that's the image I'm looking for. Sorry about that. So these are actually images like from Victorian catalogs and magazines, like giving you ideas of indoor trellises to buy, to create, like to grow plants inside the house. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. But the idea of having plants and flowers inside the house goes back to the Victorian period, and specifically to this man. I think his name was Wardell. Maybe it was Warder, but something like that. W-A-R-D something. He created, this is just a side note in case you're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something like that. He created the first sort of patented glass box that could transport plants from other places. So, you know, other parts of the world, it had the sort of temperature ability to seal plants with just enough oxygen to get species of plants and flowers from other places, colonization, and bring them back to England and grow them in your house, not in your yard, unless you had a greenhouse in your yard, which was also a big thing in the Victorian period, but grow them in your house, right? So all of these flowers being at home, of course, people are going to want to put flowers that match in other places, in carpets, in art, right? Everything in fabric and curtains and bedding, everything is so overly ornate and floral during this period. We get away from that in the Art Deco period, but you know how everything comes in like cycles, right? So as soon as we come out of the Art Deco period, we're back to the Victorian period, design-wise, aesthetic-wise, and we're thinking about flowers again. So it's not surprising that we hit 1951, right? World War II ends in 1945, and we're back to beautifying our homes. And the first thing that we think about is let's make sure there's tons of flowers. That's just my opinion. Some people just love flowers, right? And it's just the go-to for everything. But it's just interesting to see how history repeats itself. And it got me thinking about flowers, and I am going to return to the subject, but let's just look at, after I found this image, I went on our Facebook group, which is Raw Cooking and Punch Needle Club, just for a minute, and I saw that Lisa had posted this picture, she was antiquing in the last couple of days and she saw this rug. This is exactly the era of what we're talking about, 1951. This would have been, I don't recognize the pattern. Could be a blue nose, could be anything. I don't think it's a McGowan unless it's done in a very graphic style, but it could be like an Aunt Lydia, it could be that kind of thing, an heirloom. It's probably a blue nose. It's probably color coded. We see this a lot. But this is a rug that she saw at an antique store, and she is in like Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. So this is one that she posted. This is Care of Lisa Briggs. I should say that because this is her photo. Got me thinking about rugs from this period, right? So this is an eBay rug, same period. This costs $45 on eBay right now. It's from a seller called Spook Nook. So Spook, S-P-O-O-K, N-O-O-K. Here's another one from the exact same era. I like this one a lot better, I have to say. B&J Vintage Guitars. This one costs $300. Very similar, right? So these patterns we're seeing from the late 19th century right through till now. Another eBay one, this is $125 currently on eBay by a seller called Sam, S-A-M-M, Yed, Y-E-D. And here's an example of, and I have a collection of these, I love them, blue nose patterns, right? I might want to pick this one up too, actually. Not much of a border here, but they're showing you with these patterns and suggesting a color scheme. It already comes pre-colored and inked like this. And it will always say, like it does on this rug can be made into an oval or a rectangle, right? So just interesting, just taking a break here as we come to the hour. But the fact that, and we'll return to this on Wednesday, rabbit holes included, more rabbit holes to go. But just the idea, as soon as you execute that one geometric mat for under the lamp or wherever, immediately it's time to start thinking about those florals. Let's get those florals going. And that's where the conversation will bring us on Wednesday when we come back there. Nothing against florals. This is just an academic conversation, right? Nobody loves a good floral rug the way that I do. You know how many I have around me. There's two behind me. They're much more unusual, though. That one's Susan Bonnard's that she made that I really love. And this is an original pattern for like poinsettia. This is like a Victorian era rug, huge behind me. But I do love the commercial patterns for rugs, too. Let's talk more about floral rugs in lots of different ways, not just the commercial patterns. Let's pick up with this conversation on Wednesday. We'll look at the rest of this periodical. For such a small periodical, I've hardly started it because it kicked up so many other conversations. Please be looking later on Ribbon Candy Hooking. I will be putting up the January kit of the month. It will be Celtic themed, and it will be simple, and it will be lovely. And if you are a Patreon member, you will get a message from me later today, too, with your free pattern, which is a really cute pattern. This month, you'll see that coming up. And I will do the research on that Irish woman that was doing all that great documentation on ancient Celtic art. A little bit of an oxymoron there, but still. And I will, what was the other thing that I was meant to do? Yes, thank you, Kirsten. Thumbs up. Send out the video from yesterday, the design-like video. So if you weren't able to make it to the live class, and I know a lot of people weren't, or if you're just joining us and you would love to do a class where we practice making your story rug, I'm going to make a second date for that in February, or maybe even later. I'll do it later in January. So you could take the exact same program live, which will be different every time, if you missed the first one. If you took it with me last night, it's going to be the same conversation, right? And with the same framework, and the side conversations are different, but probably not worth taking twice. I will probably do other classes like this in the future, but the class that I'm about to put up will be a redo of what we did last night for people who weren't able to log on live because it's crazy holiday times, or if you're just finding it, right? So be looking for that too. Otherwise, I will see you Wednesday. Have a great day tomorrow, and we will pick this conversation up then at noon on Wednesday, Eastern Standard Time. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. I will see you soon.